Welcome to Warp Core Breach, episode 44, Corbomite Maneuver. While mapping an unexplored region of space, an unidentified object approaches your fleet at light speed, but it slows down as it nears your ships. As you attempt to move away from it, it follows your every move and won't let you escape. You determine that it is a space buoy, and quickly learn that it is emitting a radiation that is harmful to your ships. You must find a way to escape it, or destroy it. Suddenly, you are set upon by an enemy fleet. The enemy ships seem to have the same problems with the buoy. Will your fleet survive the deadly radiation, as well as the attacks from the enemy fleet? Well, Craig, will they?
Looking at the scenario, I've got to think so.
Yeah, I gotta think so too. In full disclosure, I read this scenario, and my initial reaction was, the scenario is stupid.
I was there for the moment of stupidity, and I can confirm that I kind of have to agree with you.
This scenario could have been good. The episode it's based on was a fantastic episode. The implementation of it is not fantastic.
No, I'm just not seeing a whole lot of depth to this scenario.
Alright, but we're, perhaps...
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we're putting the cart before the horse. That doesn't work well.
Let's talk about the scenario before we present our conclusions on it.
So, you've got an objective token.
Plonked down right in the middle of the board, just waiting there for both parties to saunter up to it.
Yeah. Now, this is a space buoy. It's just an obstacle. It's not a ship. Even though it's a ship in the description, but...
Irregardless.
Instead of rolling for damage, any ship that overlaps or is overlapped by the buoy automatically suffers 1 crit and takes an aux power token.
Kinda nasty.
Yeah, that much is nasty and is interesting, and
makes you not want to get near the space buoy, which is kind of the intention here.
Yeah. Now, in addition, every round, at the end of each end phase, so the very last thing that happens, the buoy moves towards the nearest ship from either fleet. So basically, whatever ship is closest to it, it moves towards that ship.
No preferences, just... hey, something's over there, it looks fun, let's go play with that.
So what you're saying is it's a 1-year-old discovering shiny things?
That is exactly what I'm saying, and I think it's pretty clear why.
Okay, so it uses a 2 straight. Now, we all know how straight maneuver templates, or any maneuver templates, work on these curved objective tokens. Not well.
Not only not well, but I think it's important that it uses a 2 straight, since if you actually bump this thing, that at least guarantees that it's not going to bump you back during the end phase.
And that much is nice.
My question about it is actually, what happens if multiple ships bump the space buoy? Which one does it go after? That isn't exactly established in the rules, so I think that's kind of an oversight on the designer's parts.
Which one is closest?
Exactly. If they're both physically touching the buoy, which one is closer?
Maybe it's the one that's closest that's not touching it. Maybe it looks for something new.
That would be an interesting way to put it down, but I think that is definitely a lapse in the rules that should be covered in a scenario like this.
Definitely should be, but... I don't know. I'm going to say for us, it looks for something new to play with because of this whole 1-year-old mentality. It gets tired of the toy that just played with it. It wants to play with something new.
And I kind of like that idea. It gives it a bit of personality, but it's weird that it's written without these sort of allowances for interesting and possibly confusing scenarios like that. It just kind of shows some oversight.
Yes. So, if the buoy overlaps a ship's base, you move it backwards along its maneuver template until it no longer overlaps a ship's base. Again, circular base, rectangular maneuver templates.
A little bit difficult, but at least it's just standard maneuvering practices. If you overlap, go back.
Yeah.
Do not pass go, do not collect $200.
Now, after the buoy moves, you place an aux power token beside every ship that's within range 1 of the buoy.
which is really nasty because if you accidentally bump this thing, now you have the aux power from bumping it and the crit damage from bumping it and this extra aux power. So you're starting the planning phase of next round with 2 auxiliary power besides your ship.
Yeah. And the ship that's nearest to the buoy must disable 1 active shield token as well. If the ship's cloaked, it must flip over its cloak token. And that really hurts because your timing window to re-enable your shields is at the start of the end phase, not at the end of the end phase. So that shield's down for the next round.
Because if you flicked your token over, it gets thrown away.
Right. You've lost your cloak. You don't get your defense dice bonus, and you have no shields. That can hurt a lot.
So probably not going to be focusing too hard on cloaking. However, what's next is even more interesting.
Yeah. The space buoy can be attacked. And because it can be attacked, it can be destroyed.
Kind of naturally follows, don't you think?
And more often than not. Not always, though.
That's true.
Any round in which the buoy receives 6 or more damage from 1 or more attacks, it is destroyed.
Poof. That's all she wrote.
If this happens, the nearest ship within range 1 of the buoy suffers 3 damage, and all other ships within range 1 of the buoy suffer 2 damage. So if no ships are within range 1 of the buoy, then nothing happens.
And you just don't have to deal with the buoy for the rest of the round.
Yeah. And once the damage is inflicted, remove the objective token from the play area.
Of course, but looking at that kind of set of rules for the buoy, I'm not really seeing a scenario in which it survives the first round.
Yeah, or the second round. Whatever round you need to be able to shoot the buoy.
I mean, unless you're just crawling your way up the board, you're going to be able to knock this thing off before it gets anywhere near your fleet. At that point, what was the point of bringing the objective if you're getting basically a free turn to shoot this when you're not in range of your opponents and they're not in range of you? Well, why is this here? It's just going to soak a few hits on the first round and basically just discourages cloaking or setup builds since you want to be dedicating some time to actually taking this thing off the board first.
Yeah, because here's the thing. The buoy has no defense stat.
All it gets is its range bonus.
Right. And that to me is really weird. Because this is a little tiny objective token. In the show, it was not this big lumbering space wreckage or space hulk that you could just hit like a... It's not equivalent to a Borg ship.
Sure, it's not going to actually be actively taking evasive maneuvers, but at the same time, it's still frickin' tiny.
Right. So 6 hits shouldn't be the thing that does it in. It should be either getting defense dice or needing more than 6 hits to destroy it.
Something that I think they could do is just to kind of like see if it hits is, I would think something like roll 2 attack dice, and if you crit it, you kill it. A very binary, because it shouldn't really take much damage. It's a tiny little space buoy, but at the same time, you want it to be very difficult to hit. So if you're setting a specific amount of dice for the ships to be rolling, you can kind of limit their ability to cheese it and make it sort of a skill check just to see if you can hit this tiny little pinprick in the vast emptiness of space rather than dump a bunch of dice into it, which pretty much most people are going to be able to do.
Oh, yeah. The other thing I would even think is give it the ability of the Xindi Weapon 0. For every hit you roll against it, let it roll a defense die.
That would be fantastic as a way to sort of balance out the idea of just dumping enough dice to kill it.
And then if it takes 6, okay, it's gone. That's fine. Because defense dice are fickle, as we've seen plenty of times, and you're still going to be able to pump enough hits into it to make it hurt.
Mm-hmm. It's just good to have some sort of counterplay to the idea of, let's just remove this objective and the whole gimmick of this scenario before we even have to fight each other. Because the way it looks right now, I'm just seeing both sides facing off in a pretty standard joust with the space buoy being removed from the game just way too early.
Right. And The last thing we need is another scenario where you have a wide open board or a slightly limited board. It just basically starts playing out the same as any other match.
Looking back, at least Tin Man had a sort of zone of exclusion around Tin Man where it sort of limited you to playing with the other half of the board. Whereas this, it is literally empty space. There's no interesting other objective tokens around the board. There's no planet tokens. There's nothing except for you, your opponent, and the buoy. And being that minimalistic doesn't really make the scenario interesting or balanced in any way. It just makes it bland.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We don't have too much in terms of advice without saying you got to do something to alter the scenario if you want it to last, because otherwise this becomes a joust.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much any attack wing player worth their salt knows how to build for a joust game.
Correct. Now, when it comes to ideas of how you could modify it, there's, of course, making the buoy resistant to attack, but you could also make it completely impervious to attack if you want to kind of go down that route. Basically make it a persistent, annoying objective that is going to really ruin your day if it gets close to you, and kind of give you an incentive to stay away from this thing and pray that it goes after your opponent.
That would also be fun.
What I would really like to see is some sort of interaction that could be had with the space buoy other than just killing it, like trying to hail it or hack it in some respect to make it target an opposing ship. Like if you could actually pick out a ship for it to go after by spending an action, maybe lowering your shields, then you could actually have a bunch of different strategies where on one hand you don't want to get close to it on the first rounds because then it's going to be hurting you for rounds 2 and 3, but maybe you want to get close to it early and then reprogram it to go after a targeted enemy ship for a turn like 3 or 4. And that actually gives it some interaction and makes you have to worry about the space buoy, makes you have to take that into account, not only when building, but also when piloting. And I think that having an objective like that really adds to the game.
That would be a very different way to approach it, but I kind of like it.
I'm not saying it's thematic. I'm saying that it adds to the game and it's more engaging to play rather than this space buoy, which is, do you want to play with the space buoy? No? Okay, just attack it, remove it, and feel free to keep jousting.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of things that could be done, and I like the idea of a small little objective token flying around the board being annoying and obnoxious to have whoever's near it. But the way it's currently implemented, it just doesn't have the impact. It doesn't have enough interaction to be worthwhile, in my opinion.
It's a little fly that you have to swat.
Correct. And I would love to see it be something a little bit more dangerous, something more fearful, but also something you can use. I really enjoy when scenarios give me things to play around with, like back in the Matara Nebula. The Matara Nebula didn't just limit your ability to use shields and cloak and scan and all that with the target locks and whatnot. It also forced you into range 1 and gave you access to a lot of new upgrades that, well, old upgrades rather, that just never saw play because shields were always up. So I like objectives that change the way I build and pilot, and the current space buoy just doesn't do that.
If it was a permanent fixture, you would have to consider aux power mitigation,
which is very, very rarely seen, so that's great.
You would want to have some maneuver changing cards.
Lure your opponent close to it, fake their messages to kind of shove them into its face.
Which we've seen a lot of. We've seen those kinds of scenarios, which is fine. So I don't know that that's necessarily the route you want to go with, but even having maneuver predictions, being able to see what your opponent's doing so you can plan differently, that takes on a different role, and that would make it worthwhile. But even to have the buoy do damage, not just at range 1 when it explodes, but to the nearest ship, that would change it in some way.
I agree that would change it, but I still don't think it'd be for the better, because at that point it just becomes a mandatory sort of Mexican standoff of who can get farthest away from the buoy turn 1 or 2 and make something like lure almost mandatory for the scenario.
It's like, okay, who isn't going to bring a Dominion battleship that has the green 3 straight because you don't want to be anywhere near that thing?
Not to mention it basically eliminates any sort of space station or big cube type ship, anything with a large base, because you literally can't set up far enough away from it as your opponent can.
Yeah, true. You could set up in the corner, but that's not...
But if your opponent set up in the corner as well, then you'd still be closer.
Yeah, true.
Which is kind of the issue that I'm seeing, is that if you make it unlimited range rather than just like range 1, possibly range 2, but even then, I'm a little bit wary. If you buff its range at all, then it becomes really obnoxious to whoever just couldn't set up far enough away.
Okay, so maybe it's the closest ship that shot at it.
Which is a little bit more interesting, because now it gives you a reason not to just wipe it off the board, but at the same time, it's still the idea of don't get near it until your opponent's already got its aggro, and then you just play normally on the other side of the map while your opponent deals with this obnoxious buoy in their face. On the bright side, it does give you bonus points if it damages your opponent.
Oh yay, 10 bonus points, because that's what I've always wanted.
And it's not 10 bonus points for destroying it. It's 10 points to the player who didn't get hit with the 3 damage when it explodes at range 1. So
yeah.
It's fairly convoluted, because you don't even have to shoot this thing. So long as it damages your opponent with that range 1 damage when it explodes, then you get the 10 points.
So it's basically the same notion as... Temporal Cold War 1, when we had the planet that exploded when you did damage, or when you shot because you were too close to the planet, mission tokens got removed and stuff like that, and then it did damage, like 2 damage at range 1 and 1 damage at range 2. This is
not quite
idea.
As convoluted, but very similar in execution.
Yeah, and then there were points awarded to the player who wasn't the closest ship to the planet.
You didn't suck at piloting. Congrats.
Or you were trying to pull off something close to the planet and you timed it wrong.
Also valid.
But I don't know.
Suffice to say, it's a very lackluster scenario, but it has so much potential. I think this one is very ripe for homebrew rules and minor alterations to make it fun for your venue, rather than just playing it the way it's written, especially because you kind of need to do that in order to shake out certain scenarios, like if multiple people bump the little buoy, because there's just no rule for that.
Yeah. So, Corbomite Maneuver, it could have been so good.
And it can still be. You just maybe don't play it exactly as written in the rules.
Yeah. So, thanks WizKids for a great starting point.
It's a great idea.
We will do better.
There's a lot of that to be said around here.
Yes. But now, we have a prize ship to talk about.
And what a prize ship it is.
You say that. I say, it looks cool.
I'm not so enthused by the ship itself, but I like a lot of the cards here, so...
Yes. Well,
I'm excited.
What? First, let's talk about the resource you get just for showing up.
I don't know what to say about this. It looks interesting, but in the weirdest way possible.
Yeah, so it's condition alert, and I keep wanting to say conditional alert. I don't know why. I just... Condition alert doesn't sound right to me. But,
which is weird, because you'd think it'd be kind of difficult to do the conditional alert in that it's 2 of the AL sound in a row, but maybe that's kind of just what you naturally want to gravitate towards.
I think it's because I'm trying to merge the words together. But anyways, it's a 5-point resource. You get 6 mission tokens on the card. During the end phase, if a ship in your fleet has exactly 1 unused token beside it, evade or battle stations only, You may remove one mission token from this card to leave that token beside the ship instead of removing it. And you can only use this ability once per round.
I have so many questions about this. Does it count it if you have just one unused token? Does that count for auxiliary power tokens? Does that count for critical tokens if you're using those? Does that count for if you have multiple of the same type of token, such as 2 evades? Does it mean if you have just exactly one of each, so you could have 1 evade and 1 battle stage? I just don't think it's specific enough.
And then what if you have a target lock?
Do target locks count as tokens?
I don't know.
Well, there you go. Like, that's what I'm talking about. There's not quite enough specificity in how this is worded to be immediately clear. And I think that if you're going to have a reference card, your reference card should be clear.
Yeah. I will say this. Aux power are tokens, but they can't be used. So an aux power is not a usable token.
Okay, I can buy that logic. Where
Same logic with criticals.
And scans.
Scans can be used.
Can they?
There are effects that say spend a scan token.
Okay, you're right. Well.
So I think this is coming down to the 4 action bar action tokens. Actually, 5, throw cloak in there. So this is target lock, scan, evade, battle station, cloak tokens.
Okay.
If you only have one of those.
And it's specifically an evade or a battle station.
So you can't use this to save a scan. Your target lock's already saved. Your cloak's already saved. Then you can spend a mission token to save your 1 evade or your 1 battle station. So if you were using Protocol or Janeway or First Officer resource card or something where you had multiple tokens and you didn't spend them, then you're out of luck.
I still don't know where to rate it, even now that I understand how it works. It relies on the idea that you got a token and that you didn't spend it.
Well, so think about this. You take battle stations.
Yes.
You roll all hits and crits. Or
Okay.
hits, crits, and blanks.
And didn't need to spend the battle station.
Right.
Maybe you can keep it around for next turn and throw in a target lock.
Yeah.
So it's not, I'm not going to say it's bad because it does have potential, but I just don't see very many ways that you can control its use. And I think that's what I look for when I'm building with resource cards, is what can I use consistently to make my fleet better. And as we talked about last time with just placing evade tokens, I can use that consistently if I've got a sort of diversion or Captain Core kind of a taunt ability, or if I have a dreadnought, which I know is like the one thing that they're going to be attacking.
Yeah.
In both of those scenarios, I can control the resource and get the most use out of it. Whereas with this, it feels very happenstance. Like there's no way to specifically go in with the intention of using this. It just kind of happens when the rolls come up.
Yeah.
And I'll admit that's not entirely true. There are a few ways that I can think of to abuse this, specifically things like Bohica or the named ability of the Akorum, things that use their ability if you have a specific token by your ship. You could grab that token, leave it there, and just have access to that ability kind of full time. Specifically, Bohica I like because he's still giving you attack quality, but you don't actually have to spend the battle station token in order to get the boost.
Right. And it's great to be able to do like a come about or a different red maneuver. And then you've still got an action for quality there.
That's true. You could use this before you're coming about, if in case you need to get yourself an arc better or have something that is going to stick around at usable times. But like I said, it's just so difficult to control, and that's my sticking point.
It's pretty random, but at least you're not assigning this to a ship. It is across your fleet. You do control it at the start of the game.
Yes, you can actually take a turn 1, walk up, use a battle station, and kind of use it like the Mirror Riker, in that you kind of save that for next turn.
Yeah. The problem is, are you going to keep saving it?
And if you do, what are you really spending your points on? You've got those 6 mission tokens, and if you're not using it, then you're just holding it there, which isn't giving you any benefit unless you're using it for something like the Ikorum or Bohica. That actually gives you a bonus just for having the token there.
Right.
So overall, I don't rate this very highly, but I acknowledge that it has some uses. I just can't see how to abuse those uses, and that's what I want when I've got a resource card like this. I want it to be abusable, and I just don't see that being the case for Conditional Alert.
I got you saying it.
Oh, now you've done it to me too, haven't you? Great.
Yeah.
Everybody blame Dave.
Okay, that's fine. I think it's okay, but I think that there's better resources, period, and I think that there's better 5-point resources.
That I can get behind.
I don't want to say this is terrible.
I outright won't say it's terrible. I just don't think it's particularly good, and that's what I'll say about it.
Yeah, I don't know where it fits in yet. I want to say that there's a home for it somewhere at some point, but maybe the cards for it haven't come out yet.
I would love to see more cards that gave you a passive benefit for having tokens.
Yeah. So, maybe. Maybe the future will have something and we'll be like, oh, yeah, when we were recording this, we were so wrong. Now this is like one of the top 5 resources in the game.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, as will I. Next
up, we have the ship itself. The IRW Rateg, the newest in the long line of Romulan birds of prey. It's getting almost as long as the Dederidex class.
There's only 3 of these.
4 now.
No, there's
Did we really need a 4th? There's the Praetus. There's the Galgathong. What else is there?
The Praetus is a Enterprise era. This is a different model. It's Galgathon, Vortivore, and now the Rateg.
Okay. Well, it's still listed as a Romulan bird of prey class.
Well, yes, but it's a different model.
I'm not saying it's not a different model. I'm saying this is our 4th bird of prey.
These have shields, the Praetus and the Jazz Call. Those don't have shields. So, anyways. Continue with the Rateg.
It's got a very usable named ability for a cloaking ship. Specifically, when defending, if you're cloaked, you can reroll 2 of your defense dice. Add that to the fact that you've got 2 native defense dice on your 2-2-3-2 stat line, and you've got a reasonably defensive little dinker ship for your Romulans.
Yeah, it's like a mini Belloc.
Exactly. That's a great way to think of it. It has low stats, but if you're cloaking and you want some extra quality on your defense dice, this is your bird of prey of choice.
Yeah. The great thing about this ship, it has a tech slot.
Which is absolutely critical for the Romulans. The Romulans have some very usable crew, but even better tech. Whether you want to throw on an interface generator and make it just never die, whether you want to get those cloaked mines all the way up to the front line without spending too big of an investment on your dinker.
This is one you actually probably want advanced cloaking from the Vortivore pack, so that you can just take an Ox Power to stay cloaked.
Never stop cloaking, guys. It really is the only way you stay alive as a dinker ship like the Bird of Prey.
Well, and then you get to keep attacking. Yeah, it's only 2 dice, but maybe a card later on might...
Only 2 dice for now.
So, this is a ship that wants you cloaked. You might as well stay that way.
I think that's words to live by for pretty much anyone in the Romulan faction. Stay cloaked.
Yeah, actually. Maybe the occasional Riemann Warbird doesn't want to be cloaked, but...
Few and far between.
Yeah.
Maybe not on the table, but at least in universe.
Yes. Alright, so we get Captain Tal. One of the two.
He's one of those guys that gives you a very solid bonus on a Tuesday during the full moon while it's raining in Brazil.
Yep. So, skill 4, 3 points with a talent. If this card is assigned to a Romulan ship, when attacking at range 1 with your primary weapon, during the roll attack dice step, gain +1 attack die. So basically, he's the Reliant for Romulans.
And it makes me so mad that I can't run him on the Reliant and get his bonus, because that would be really enjoyable to just get +3 attack dice at range 1 with a 180-degree arc. But no, he's specifically just for Romulans, and I think that kills him for me, because there's a lot of ships that I would really like to get bonus dice at range 1, and he can't be used on basically any of them.
Yeah, it's a shame that Romulan Hijackers doesn't make a ship Romulan.
That would be such an interesting interaction. I would love it if that were actually the case, but it's not.
Yeah. Because then he'd be perfect for the Reliant.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more ships that you could run that with. I would also like to run him on something with a 360-degree arc, like the Borg, because that now gives you 2 extra attack dice at range 1, which is where about half your shots are going to be taking place, because you only have range 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So that's also something reasonable you can do with a captain that gives you bonus dice at range 1, but he's a captain that gives you bonus dice at range 1 if you're Romulan and only using primary weapons.
On a Riemann or even a Dideridix of Valdor class, you're probably sticking to your primary weapon.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're also going to have a much better captain for this. Something like Shinzon to get a ton of talents. Something like Donatra to boost your fleet. Letent to maybe... Not Letent, but...
Terrace for 360.
That's what I was talking about. I was like, the one that discards crew for the 360 arc.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also really good.
I mean, even...
Heck, you can use Salatrell.
Yeah, for the skill against a faction.
Skill 10 is very useful.
Right. So you pick your moments. I will say this much. I think Tal has some great potential in really fun, gigantic games of Attack Wing. Because then you throw him on a ship, you let him go command a small wing over on the side, and occasionally his bonus is going to proc, and you go, oh, hey, cool, I get that neat effect, and you're not sad about it at all.
I would agree with that. I think he's very handy to put on a ship that you just don't want to worry about. It's going to fly, it's going to do its thing, and it's going to shoot stuff, and you're not going to have to care too much about specifically getting it to proc. It's just a nice bonus when it happens.
Yeah. The 3 points is what really hurts. If he's 2 points and everything else is the same, I could dig it. Yeah, but 3 points, you got to find a reason to put him on. 2 points, you can kind of slip him in.
Yeah, there's just so many different captains that really kind of occupy that same slot. Like, yeah. I'd choose Valdor over him for a higher captain skill and probably more consistent ability. Yeah, absolutely. So, that's what we have to say about Tal. Next up is the elite talent, Military Secrets. And what a weird little talent it is. When attacking, during the roll defense die step, you can discard this card to force the defending ship to roll 1 less defense die, or 2 less defense die if the ship is cloaked. Now, that is interesting for a pair of reasons. On the one hand, if you're using it while your opponent isn't cloaked, this is a scan token. That is all it is. You're spending 4 points on a discard for a scan token, when you could just as easily take something like More Than Meets the Eye from the Bajoran Elite Talents for 1 point and just get a free scan token by your ship for all your attacks during the round rather than just this one specific one. And if the opposing ship is cloaked, well, then you're spending 4 points to get rid of effectively 4 points of investment on one engagement. So still not a particularly value exchange, but could be usable against very nasty 2 defense die cloakers like the Riemann Warbirds, the Scimitars out there, or maybe certain Diderodex or Valdor classes, in combination with other defense dice mitigation in order to kind of take away some of the defense quality that your opponent might have.
No, I mean, if you already have a scan token and you use military secrets against a cloaked ship, say even a Klingon cloaked ship, their 5 defense die roll now went down to a 2 defense die roll. That might kill them.
That might kill them, but you spent a ton of points just for 2 defense dice. Those, statistically, aren't going to even get you a full defense die out of that. You only get an evade result 1 out of 3,
Right.
or roughly 1 out of 3. So if you take 2, you're still not even getting a full evade result.
Yeah, the one redeeming quality of this card, and I don't love this card, I'm trying to find the silver lining. The timing for it is during the roll defense dice step. That's after you have carried out your attack.
That's worthwhile, I suppose. If you see that you've got like a pair of crits and you really want those going through on a cloaked ship, or you realize that you have just barely enough damage to take them out if they roll poorly, or if you remove their defense dice, maybe that's useful. But in that case, you're kind of just building a smaller version of the other Romulan elite talent, invasion plans, which allow you to go directly for the -2 defense dice against anything, so long as you're cloaked and at range.
Well, but here you don't have to be cloaked. I will say this. I think this slots well into Shinzon's hidden talents.
Oh, that's cute. That's funny. I wouldn't have considered that, but I suppose that, yes, that is actually very reasonable.
And that might be the only place it really fits well.
I'm going to fight you there, Dave, because I have one idea of where this really shines.
Okay.
And that is on a wharf ship, or any sort of attack that is outside of the attack step. Because if you're using this against a cloaked ship, that cloaked ship outside of the combat phase isn't getting the defense dice from their cloak token. So now they're at -4 defense dice, and if you can toss military secrets on top, you can get rid of their base agility as well. And since it doesn't mention the combat phase, you can do that on a wharf attack to cut a cloak ship down from what could be 6 defense dice all the way down to 0. And I think that is what I want from military secrets. The ability to just say, no, I'm just going to attack your cloak ship with a effectively magnetometric guided charge before the attack step even begins, before you have a chance to fight back. And I think that could really recommend military secrets to me. It's very gimmicky, but I'm all about the gimmicks.
At that point, I question what your opponent is doing cloaking when you have Worf in your build. And that's Admiral Worf.
Yeah, I suppose that if they see that, they should know better than to cloak, but God, that would be such a fun turn to just throw in like a boosted Brel class from, a Borg Brel class from the Klingons, and toss military secrets on that, Worf it. That's fun.
Okay, I grant you that one. That's why we keep you around.
I'm earning my keep.
Okay. Probably best used under Shinzon, but what you just brought up is a cute trick.
Gimmick potential with Worf.
Yes.
I love it.
Alright, so we get a very interesting crew. Nanclus.
Very interesting crew indeed.
Yes. 5-point unique, and for an action, discard this card to target an opposing ship at range 1 to 3. The target ship gains +1 attack die this round, but cannot roll defense dice this round. That's a good trade-off.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, please, please, yes. Give me more.
Goodbye, Super Voyager? Or Super Bellerophon?
Goodbye, cloak ships.
Yeah.
Goodbye, dreadnoughts. Goodbye, any one thing that is super invested in defense. Your opponent's sitting across the board from you with a tricked out Riemann Warbird, and you've got Nanclus. Just try to outspeed, and you have a fully defenseless scimitar to just soak your attack dice now.
Yeah.
I don't think even Interface Generator is going to stop you if you can get 2 attacks off before the scimitar gets a chance to fight back.
Yeah, if they're cloaked, I mean, you gotta do a bunch of damage and then do 6 more.
Mm-hmm.
That's rough.
It's difficult, but
Plausible.
I still think that for just a flat action, target ship gets 0 defense dice for the whole round. Wow, that is powerful. It doesn't even remove their defense dice. They can't roll defense dice at all. You don't even get a range bonus.
Right. To tie it back in, put this on a low captain skill ship, combo with Wharf on a higher captain skill. Now they get none against your Wharf shot, and then go into combat.
And get shot again. It's very, very usable. There's so many situations where removing a ship's defense dice for the full turn is just so powerful. Stick Nanklus next to a Russian ship that also has projected stasis field, and you've effectively shut down half their team for the first round. Because now you've got one ship that's not throwing defense dice, one ship that has no shields and isn't attacking you, and you're just sitting back taking your pickings. What do you want gone? Choose now.
Yeah. Now, there probably is some weird interactions about they cannot roll defense dice. I'm thinking of Golma Dread, but
I was not even gonna talk about that. I'm like, that is a whole can of ruling worms that I don't want to get into, because there's a lot of abilities that have you roll attack or defense dice for checks rather than actual combat damage.
I'm pretty sure this is intended for combat, not.
And that's what I was just going to take it as. I'm not going to try and get fancy with it and use it to remove things like monotanium armor.
Yeah, I don't think it goes there.
I think it's very, very fun and very usable.
I don't think Nanklis runs over to the opponent's side, steals their defense dice for the round, and is like, you can't touch these at all.
Anytime you would need to roll these, you get nothing.
Although that would be quite funny.
That would be very, very entertaining. Just take away your opponent's stack of defense dice for the turn. You can have these back when you behave.
Although at that point you can roll an attack die and the hits are evades, the crit is a blank, and the battle stations are the same, so...
Fine. Still, Nanklis, very usable, very, very powerful action.
Yes.
I'm almost considering running the independent Odo with this so I can use it twice. Good grief.
Goval pairs with this, Centurion pairs with this...
Beverly Crusher. There's a bunch of different Delta Shift from last pack. Ugh.
I mean, if you really want to run it like 5 times, sure.
If you need it, it's there.
Yeah.
But yes, Nanklis is very, very worthwhile, and I like that he exists because there's been a dearth of counterplay to dreadnoughts and heavily cloaked ships that I'm happy to see is at least being addressed in some respect.
Yes. Now you have mag charges on some ships, and Nanklis.
It turns every attack into a mag charge against your target.
Now with more dice.
Exactly. So I'm a fan of Nanklis. He's okay in my book. I want him on my fleet, and I want to abuse him like I abuse all the gimmicks in my fleet.
Okay. I won't look forward to that.
Next up is Control Center. It is a 4-point generic tech. After performing your action, you may disable this card to perform one of the actions on your action bar as a free action. No ship may be equipped with more than one central control.
Yeah, so I think Species 8472 got this as a 1-point upgrade.
That was a discard. This is a disable, so you still keep the tech around. If you have something that relies on passively having tech, looking at you, Kola, from the Kazon faction. It's a bit of a stretch to go Romulan Kazon, but it is entirely possible.
It is.
There's also options like advanced technology, though at that point, this is just as effective as any cost of tech and doesn't really need to be a 4-point. You could take some Dinker 1 or 2 cost and get the same exact results.
Yeah.
What I do like about it is that you can use this in addition to a non-action bar action.
Oh, sure.
Performing actions is generally something you want to be doing, but looking at this, it is a 4 cost. Now, on one hand, you could make the argument that it is a disable upgrade, so you're going to be able to hold this for multiple turns. If you, say, have one turn out of combat to kind of refresh yourself, you can re-enable this to get ready for running into the fray again. You could save this for specific turns like recloaking after combat or whenever it really needs to be used, but at the same time, 4 points and a Romulan tech slot? That's a hefty price.
Yeah, that is. Romulans do not have a lot of tech to go around.
They need so much of their tech because all their tech is fantastic, and so throwing in more near chaff tech like Control Central just kind of doesn't do much to the reigning kings of interphase, temporal displacement, cloaked minds, all the fun stuff.
This would be a great tech if it wasn't Romulan. Basically any other faction, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, because most factions have a far wider diversity in their action bar, or at least kind of rely on their actions a lot more, whereas the Romulans have a lot of inbuilt quality and kind of focus on just cloak and fight. Yeah. And that's it.
They target lock?
They target lock, and they target lock, and they target lock, and they evade, and they target lock, and then they cloak.
It would be really nice to use Control Central to cloak and sensor echo in a turn.
That would be cutesy, because you could actually perform the sensor echo second because you've already got the cloak down.
Yeah, but it's not 4 points good.
Correct, and I think that's kind of the takeaway here is that it's just not going to really do it for me.
Yeah, that's like 1 or 2 point good.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. Even as a disable instead of a discard, I'd almost prefer it to be a discard.
So that we could get the points cost down.
Yeah, or time tokens.
Oh, time tokens on this would be fantastic. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, even make it 3 points and give me time tokens instead. I'm okay. But
that would be really fun, actually. Now I want that.
I
Look
know.
what you've done, Dave.
I'm sorry.
So yes, Control Central. Interesting, but not quite where we think it needs to be.
Yeah. So, our weapon, main batteries.
Oh yes, main batteries.
Non-unique.
Replaces itself in its upgrade bar, so it slots into a secondary weapon upgrade slot, gives you another one, basically takes no investment whatsoever. All you need is a slot to put it in the first place. Range 1, 2, 3 with 3 attack dice. The attack is not a disable. Luckily enough, it's placed 2 time tokens on this card to perform the attack. So 1 less than normal. You only have 1 turn of downtime.
About time.
Treat the attack as if it were made with primary weapons. Ooh, so it's effectively range 1 to 3, primary weapons value at 3. I don't really see how, why, or when you would ever run this on anything that had 3 or higher primary weapons value natively, but I think it does very well on ships that have lower than 3 primary weapons value natively. Very well indeed, specifically Federation, because all the Federation abilities that boost primary attack also works with main batteries. I'm looking at you, Type 8 phasers, Array. I'm looking at you, upgraded phasers. You both work with main batteries, and since you would normally use Sakona to give you slots and cut down on the cost, that also applies to main batteries. Now, that's costing 2 less, giving you a base of 3 attack dice, and giving you a lot of boosts on ships that normally wouldn't have the highest attack value. Anything that's boosting primary weapons and works with primary weapons like Pavel Chekhov should work fine with main batteries. Because it's not an attack with a secondary weapon. It's an attack with your primary weapons.
I grant you that much because it is like the Bajorn Phaser Strike. Where I do kind of like this is that you can put it on a Borg ship because there's nothing here that mentions arc. I'm specifically thinking the scout cubes.
Yes, very nice to be able to get range 3 on scout cubes, especially since you can still use your second upgrade slot that it gives you for mag charges for natural.
Yes. Granted.
No, that's not true at all, because that would still be range 3.
No, you put this on, and you have mag charges.
Okay, kind of as a backup for if you can't re-enable your mag charges?
Yeah, if somehow you find yourself without an action, or you find yourself up against Borg, then you don't always need to have mag charges. So you can alternate.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
You can then take actions to get target locks.
And get a little bit more quality over quantity.
Yes.
Rather. Okay, that's an interesting way of panning that out. I'm not sure that I buy that, because I still think that the mag charges, the battle station conversion is worth about as much as the reroll of the target lock, but even so.
Sure. Where I'm at, though, is in chewing through shields.
Okay.
Going to a crit doesn't help you.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth a hit.
Correct. And it's the only way that you can fight at range 3, which is probably meaning that you're just getting into combat, so their shields will still be up.
Right. So at that point, I might as well use main batteries at least every other turn and
Correct.
save myself having to spend my action to re-enable, and maybe I get some shots in and I can do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have mag charges for when I need them, and I've got a target lock for quality, or I can evade and take one less damage, and I'm in a better place.
I'm not convinced, but I definitely think that it is usable because it doesn't mention arc, and that you can use it on the scout cubes. I think it works best with the Federation faction, specifically because of the upgrades to their phasers, like Type 8 and upgraded, but also because of the generic weapon arsenal. This adds 2 upgrade slots to your 2 weapon upgrades to your upgrade bar, and when placing time tokens on one of your other weapon upgrades, you can place one of those time tokens on this card.
Yeah.
If you're firing a weapon, main batteries, with 2 time tokens, now you take one of those off and place it on arsenal. Now you've got 2 upgrades with 1 time token on them each, and they both go away at the end of the round. So now you're firing every single turn with your main batteries, with your boosted attack dice, with 1 time token each, and you even have enough slots that, using the Sakona slot that would come with it naturally, you can actually put this on any ship you like without even using a weapon upgrade slot. You can put this on a ship like the Pegasus that doesn't come with a native upgrade slot and for secondary weapons, and you still don't lose out on anything because you've got enough upgrade slots provided by the upgrades themselves to fit both Federation upgraded phasers and Type 8 phaser array onto the same ship, with the main battery replacing itself and with the arsenal giving you 2 extras.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, you can throw Tactical Station on there, and every single one of the weapon upgrades I just named all gets its cost reduced by Sakona for massive, massive savings. And so if you can throw this on something like the Pegasus, or even something really cutesy like the Raven, you can get a lot of work done. Because while neither of these ships normally get any sort of weapon upgrade, Sakona and main battery and arsenal and Tactical Station all replace themselves and give you space for those phaser upgrades that are going to bump you up to 5 attack dice naturally. My favorite application for this, however, is on the USS Reliant.
I was just going to say that.
I am such a big fan of 180-degree arc ships. I love them especially when they get white turns, and I love the USS Reliant's named ability of getting extra attack dice at range 1. My only problem was that its primary weapons value of 2 doesn't get all the way up to the 5 attack dice that I like to throw with perfect quality as kind of my baseline. If a ship has less than 5 attack dice normally, chances are I'm not looking at it too closely, which is why I rarely build with things like Voyager or whatnot. Using main batteries, you can actually bump the USS Reliant up to 5 normal attack dice at any range, 7 attack dice at range 1, and I think that's where we break even. And it even leaves you a spare weapon slot and a spare crew slot. You can fill in the weapon slot with systems upgrade to convert it to a tech slot and get some more survivability. Crew is useful for whatever you want. You could throw Unimatrix shielding into your tech slot, and now you've got a 5235 ship, or 5236 ship, that is going to be able to churn out a lot of damage in a 180-degree arc with white turns, massive damage at range 1, give it a captain that gives it free actions, and I'm just in love. The Reliant is now like my new favorite ship. It has usurped the Enterprise A. Okay, maybe not yet, but it's such a fantastic ship, and main batteries makes it that much more useful.
I'm with you. I've always been a fan of the Reliant, and this gives you all the more reason to be able to run it. So,
I also think that I'm giving a little bit of short shrift to the Pegasus, since using systems upgrade on the spare crew slot that is left over after the Sakona combo, that allows you to get up to your normal 5 attack dice and have 3 slots, all at -1 cost for upgrades of any sort. You can throw whatever sort of big Federation tech upgrades you want on there. Maybe bring in a cloaked mine on here because you're removing the faction penalty with the named ability of the Pegasus. And I think that is also a very viable strategy. But still, the Reliant is just my baby because it has white turns and a 180-degree arc.
Well, I'm certainly convinced. I hope you, the listener, are convinced. Main batteries are going to be the reason you want to own multiples of this pack.
Absolutely.
And I really hate that they do this. Like, stop giving us desirable cards in prize packs that we need to own multiples of. It makes people greedy.
It does, but I'm glad the upgrade exists. I've wanted for a while a way to just boost the primary weapons on the Reliant. Just that little smidge to make it really usable, and main batteries does that in a way that synergizes perfectly with the Federation faction because it goes along with all their natural attack boosts, and it is non-unique, and it provides its own weapon slot and gets discounted by Sakona. And just like the massive long list of positives that I have in favor of this just massively dwarfs the fact that it's basically only useful for ships that have 2 or 1 primary weapons value, and possibly Borg scout cubes for the range 3 capacities. Also works really well for 2 points effectively. You can make your Delta Flyer now attack at range 3 in its forward firing arc, where it was previously limited to 2, and that also gets one of the biggest problems that I had with running the Delta Flyer. So this thing is just absolutely fantastic for the Federation, which makes it kind of ironic that it showed up in the Romulan faction. But as long as you're okay with going cross-faction and comboing it up with other upgrades, it's a fantastic piece of kit that I'm going to want in my builds in the future. It's an enabler. It makes certain ships viable when they weren't, kind of like Type 8 phaser array and upgraded phasers, and I think that brings a lot to the game. Even though it is Romulan, I'm a fan.
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. I don't know that this upgrade is a gigantic game changer, but it certainly opens up a lot of ships that weren't open before.
It's a quality of life improvement in my book, because if run properly alongside Arsenal, it's a permanent boost to your primary weapons value. And if you can get a permanent boost to your primary weapons value, that's generally worth a lot of points.
Yeah, and even if you don't run it alongside Arsenal, you don't want to go to that huge point investment, and I know it's not gigantic with Sakona.
2 points with Sakona, I'm telling you, man.
Well, 2 points for each, plus the cost of Sakona.
True.
If you don't want to go that route, it's still a boost to your primary weapon, although Sakona with the Type 8 upgraded. But even if you're not putting it on a Fed ship, this will enhance all of those little tiny ships. And that's a worthwhile thing.
Absolutely. I even like this on the Rateg itself, because combined with Tal, that allows you to go up to 5 attack dice at range 1, which is not something you see out of a bird of prey too terribly often.
Yeah. Heck, put Sakona or some other way to get a weapon slot on like the Vo or the Pi or one of those scout or science vessels, and now you can do some fun shenanigans by having a weapon there.
Mm-hmm. It makes more ships more viable, and I think that's what I want from secondary weapons. I don't want my 7th reprint of photon torpedoes. I want more ships to be able to use secondary weapons to make them better.
Yep. So, pack as a whole, if it's not for main batteries, I think the pack kind of has us going, it's a solid prize pack because...
Nanclus still sells it for me. Nanclus and main batteries are the clear stars of this show. I think that Nanclus is great as a standalone upgrade that you can throw in basically anywhere, whereas main batteries is more specifically built around combo potential.
Yes.
But together, I think they make this a very worthwhile pack indeed. Tal is fun for very gimmicky setups. The Rateg's a usable bird of prey.
The Rateg's a very prize ship card. And Tal is a very prize ship captain. By that I mean it's not a, you gotta go out and get it, but it's cool to have it.
It's nice to have. And beyond all that, I still like the idea of military secrets being like the anti-cloaking tech with Worf, so it's just like I'm stuck on that.
Yeah, it's a
such
neat
a powerful gimmick that I want it so bad.
Yeah, there's not a card here I hate, though Control Central is definitely the worst card in this pack.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
And even then, it's not terrible like some other cards have been. I give it that. It's not like I want to light it on fire and use it as kindling.
When the worst of the worst isn't that bad, then you've got a very solid pack, and that's what the Rateg offers.
Yeah, so now the question becomes, how many of these things can I get my hands on?
How many main batteries do I need?
A lot.
Literally all.
Well, I mean, we're running 160 constructed fleets. The answer could be a lot.
Speaking of which, very, very pleased with the boost, just to self-plug there. I think building with 160 points, if you've got the materials for it, really opens you up to a lot of fun fleet setups.
Yeah. But that's something for gate play in Hilmar. And,
absolutely.
You know what? If you're finding your venue to be a little stagnant, try upping the point cost.
Up the point cost, modify the scenarios, homebrew some rules. It's okay, so long as everyone's there and playing and having fun. That's what you came there to do.
Yeah. Just let everybody know what you're doing ahead of time.
Probably for the best.
That's the best way to do things, because you do not want people coming in going, I didn't know we were doing that. All right, there you have it. And on that note, we're going to take off. So thank you guys for listening to our Corbomite Maneuver overview. And we'll be back in September with The Trouble with Tribbles.
Have a great day, everybody.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.